All right, y'all, welcome to the show. We've got an awesome one for you today. We are continuing our discussion of the best picture nominees, and this week's discussion is Anatomy of a Fall. Joining me, your host, uh, George Washington. No, I'm just kidding. We have Sam, who has been on the old name before.
On the old what?
The old, so the, you might have missed. We changed the name of the podcast to Oscar's
Mm,
Mafia from Gold Derby Horses. But you've been on the old show, so you're on the new one now. It's your first appearance.
wow, I'm so amazed.
Anyway, so as I alluded to before, this is about Anatomy of a Fall from director Justine Triet. Previously won the Palme d'Or. And we already know all the festival run that it took. So let's just get into the film itself. I did not see it at Cannes because I did not go to Cannes, but I did. I saw it in.
So you don't want to become broke. So
Yeah, I don't. I can't be broke. I did see it in in AMC though, and it's really. It almost took me by surprise in a way because, unlike a lot of other people, I had actually watched a Justine Triet film
mm,
before Anatomy of a Fall, a movie called Sibylle, which I thought was kind of mediocre. Maybe I should go back and watch that again now, though, after seeing this film. But it's a really excellent movie. Uh, of course, acting, writing are top notch, but I think also the way it plays with languages specifically, with French and English, and how you know things get lost in translation with the two languages. Um, it's something I kind of picked up on a second watch of this movie, and ultimately, I think that kind of blurred lines is like also kind of between truth and fiction. This is something I'm sure we'll get into later on. I really appreciated the use of language to kind of to differentiate that, and the film's editing I think is some of the best of the year. The directing is real incredible as well, and I think in terms of like courtroom dramas and where this is where this falls in terms of like I guess like murder mystery to true crime technically is that, but it's so much more than that as well. This lands near the very top, I think, because there's like so much more going on than in most of those types of films, I feel like. And it is ultimately, how do I put it? The way it tells that story is unconventional in a way, where like there's like something like it's not a wholly original movie. There's things about it that are similar to other films, but it is done in a way that is like unlike this type of movie, and it feels very airtight, and just like the way in which the movie presents its story feels kind of unpredictable in that way, and I think it's a, a better way of keeping tension than just giving it to you straightly, or like not really going anywhere with it. If it makes any sense what I'm trying to say, I didn't do much preparation, but yeah, I think this movie is a really, um, I guess you could say it's a thrilling movie, and it has so much going on that will leave you kind of dissecting the marriage and the characters and kind of like why it tells the story in this specific setting for a long time. I think it's great.
Yeah, I went to a screening of this during New York Film Festival, but wasn't actually a part of New York Film Festival. I have a friend who lives in another country, and he got an invitation to the screening and obviously couldn't go, so he was like, "You should go." And I went, and it was not a big theater, and there were maybe 20 people in the theater, even who showed up. But afterwards, Sandra Hüller and Justine Triet came to talk to us. So I immediately went to the front row, sat right next to them for the Q&A, and really scavenged my way in there. And when they were done, like, talked to them because I, wanted to make connections. Um, and the first thing I said to Sandra was, I I love this movie so much because it's a courtroom drama that obviously isn't looking for an answer and obviously isn't trying to come to a conclusion, but in general doesn't take itself seriously. Even though the
Mhm.
subject matter of the film is serious, the film is presented in a way that's so authentic and kind of points out a lot of superficiality and kind of ridiculousness in the issues it's discussing. For
Yes.
example, obviously dissects the French court system, which is very funny by the way the film presents it. I mean, you have this prosecutor who basically comes to a conclusion that Sandra is a murderer because she is a bisexual woman and has a capability of cheating on her husband, and then concluded that she was a killer. Like, and he said it so seriously. And there is this very interesting energy and moments like that. There's another one when this woman who's defending Sandra is saying that it's extremely improbable that something like this would happen, and then he goes, "Sure, but it's not impossible." And she says, "Just like it's not impossible that I'll be president someday." So it has moments like this where I rarely see in courtroom dramas, and in a lot of courtroom dramas, especially the ones that are nominated for the Oscars, feel as though those jokes implemented are so forced and really trying to like be so funny and creative. And those movies also like circle around the court and have big zooming in and out shots, and they're just trying to get an answer, and everyone's going to be shocked by the final result, or everyone's going to be like, "Yay!" when the movie ends and the good guys win. But this movie does zip zap in that
Mhm.
department. It obviously doesn't tell you what happens, but that's not what it's about. It's about the how and not the what, and that's the most. I think that's an interesting way of pointing out the main theme, which is that when there is a case, it is so hard to determine whether or not someone is guilty or innocent, because what do those words actually mean? They're in themselves social constructs that sort of don't really mean anything. So it sort of highlights the motivations and an attempt to grasp the character's motivations and feelings during specific instances throughout the relationship to try and reach a conclusion as to what happened, which is how we should look at these things instead of just saying someone did something right or someone did something wrong or illegal. And
Mhm.
all of that is why this is one of the best movies of the year and will age really well as a best picture nomination, because it it takes a genre, not only changes the genre conventions, but changes its own narrative and thematically says something quite different despite not being obvious about the fact that it's doing something different.
So, as you can see, an accidental fall is going to be hard to defend, given the height of the windowsill. So that's why there's an investigation for more suspect, and your more suspicious death, yeah, and your témoin assisté because you were the only person there.
Okay.
And of course, you're his wife. Now, looking for a stranger who walks in, kills him while you were sleeping right above and Daniel was out for a walk is a shitty strategy. Samuel had no enemies. That
Stop. I did not kill him.
That's not the point.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of a scene kind of before all the courtroom stuff happens, where this isn't just the court system; it's like the whole police detective investigation system. I guess in France as well, where they're filming the video between Sandra and one of the investigators they're supposed to kind of recite what they were saying to what she was saying to her, what she was apparently saying to her husband before he fell off the roof. They do it, and they say that Daniel can't hear, and so she's like, "You need to speak up," and she says like, "But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shout." But they said, "Well, you got to do it again," and then they do it over and over again until Daniel can hear it. It's very presented in a way where it's like, why is this necessary, right? Why do we have to do this over and over and over again to get that result? And also through the way that other evidence is presented, like the guys who said who showed the animation of the simulation of the fall, and they said like it's very much improbable that he could have been hit in the head, that the blood could have splattered on the wall in a certain way if he had hit his head on the roof. Everything with the prosecutor as well, like you said, it feels very much like they were deliberately like holding their thumb on the scale to get her convicted in that way. And yeah, that just reminded me of that. It's very unserious.
Very unserious. And there was a lot of argument going on following the Oscar nominations that like sure, like Justine Triet was nominated for Best Director, but like her movie isn't outwardly feminist and Barbie is whatever, but like that whole argument felt very weird to me because I actually find this movie to be quite feminist in a very unique way where with the character of the husband there are subconscious things in their relationship that he did that I found to be very misogynistic, and the film pointed that out in a subtle way. Like the big argument scene, like he I mean my personal opinion is that he killed himself, and I think that he recorded that argument for a reason. And you can tell by the way he initially spoke was that he was clearly setting her up and provoking her and saying things that he knew would make her yell at him and make her get angry. And it's like, why else would you be recording this if you weren't going to set it up like that? And he knew that because of that, she would go through fucking hell in court, not just as this person with marriage problems, but as a bisexual woman with marriage problems who also cheated on her husband. So
Right.
there's definitely this highlight of the way he sort of manipulated her to try and manipulate the situation, even though he knew he wouldn't be there for it. And it was this really interesting way to show the greed and power that he had. And he doesn't even have 10 minutes of screen time in the film, but there's still a lot there to go off of. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think that this movie is feminist, but in a way that isn't overt. And to me, that's more impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I admit I haven't really thought about it, that argument scene that deeply. It's probably because I'd only watched the movie like a couple of times. But I definitely see the angle there, just in this in the sense that the prosecutor and I guess most of the entities of the French judicial and police system in this film are like trying to go out of their way to defend the husband over Sandra. And then like what's the one scene where one of the investigative bodies is supposedly defending her? It's the one where a woman is presenting the argument. Yeah, I think I can see what you're saying. I haven't necessarily thought about it that deeply, but no, I think there definitely is a feminist angle to the movie. It's just not like aesthetically feminist.
Right. But I kind of appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think it's a movie that says so much, but still manages to have a central thesis and not feel as though it's trying to talk about a million things at once, just like for the purpose of being hashtag performative activist.
Right.
When it does say something concrete, but so many things build off of it, and it's feels so refreshing to watch. And I also think that this isn't a jab at the film, but there is an element of this film and a lot of the reception it's gotten that is like to me, which definitely helped it get a Best Picture nomination. And I felt kind of similarly about Parasite too, which is how yes, it's not an English language movie, but it's still extremely accessible and
Right.
not confusing and very easy to like and get on board with. And a lot of Americans, I feel like, will watch this movie and think they're watching something so exotic and so different, and will give themselves brownie points because they watch something so foreign, when in reality it's actually just like a solid great movie, just that element of it isn't why it's great. But I don't really know where I'm
Yeah.
going with it. I just feel like I've
No,
seen
I
this.
get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. And I'll say this, when we were talking about American fiction the other day, there was a very common theme of like, you know, when a lot of white people in the West watch a certain movie that is directed by people of color, say black people, for example, they'll go, ah, that's the black experience. When, there's a lot of other films that like they could watch that, are made by black people, starring black people, that could very easily be with white people and just be the same film. And they don't consider that the black experience. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but like, a
No,
lot of people will
you're right,
feel
no.
will feel smart watching a movie like this, or a film like Parasite, as you said, which are both very unsubtle movies, and like, yeah, they make you think for sure. They give you a lot to think about, but they're not necessarily the deepest movies in the world. Like I think,
But they know that, which is why they work so well.
yeah, like deep down they know that, but they think it's so. Well, I shouldn't say they think they're so smart, because the movies are smart, but they think it's so deep. There's something that in these movies that other people don't understand,
Sure.
which isn't necessarily true. And like, even something like Drive My Car, which is like, aesthetically a more intellectual movie, and I think it is, like, if you really sit down and think about it, it is deeper than this film, and even Parasite. It's still a movie that you can watch, and like it doesn't take that much to really fully understand it, if you or at least get like a gist of it. Like it's not like an EO, where some people are going to be like, well, what was that even about? Like you can understand what Drive My Car is.
Yeah, even like Jean Dielman, like it's really slow and inaccessible for that. But because there's not that much plot happening, I feel like it's another movie where most people, especially people with like a liberal arts degree, can very tangibly follow that kind of movie. And Anatomy of a Fall, like this is not a complaint about the film itself, but I've noticed something interesting around the audience there and around its reception. And now we're living in an age where I assume for however long the Oscars continue to happen, that we're going to get at least one international film nominated for Best Picture. I mean, that's just going to happen.
Oh, I hope so.
I mean, I think it's inevitable at this point. I mean, the trend recently has been this, and it wasn't before 2018. So
Mhm.
I genuinely do believe that is going to happen, and I'm not just saying that out of hope, even though it is out of hope, but I think that's a realistic expectation. And I feel like a lot of the movies that are going to get it are going to be, I think we're going to be able to start calling a foreign language film Oscar bait, because now we know what is digestible to the masses. And again, I'm not blaming Anatomy of a Fall. It's my number 3 of the year. I'm obsessed with this movie. But
Mhm.
it's reminding me of this. And then it's sort of bringing me to this conclusion.
Well, in a way, we already have a international film that you could call Oscar to getting the Best Picture, All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah, I guess that would count.
No, I definitely do. in this film is, I guess, in a way, it is like aesthetically, it's not like presentation wise. It's I wouldn't say it is exactly because well, I mean, even presentation wise, like like it's kind of done in a cinema verite sort of style or
Totally.
similar to that,
Totally.
which is not something that they traditionally recognize in Best Picture. But like story wise, you could look at that and say, yeah, that makes sense as a movie the Oscars would nominate.
Totally. It also has big performances, showy writing. It's digestible, entertaining movie.
There are some very subtle moments in the movie though that I noticed, even if overall I think the movie is very unsubtle. For one, there is a certain moment where I think it's either when they're just back from the argument scene and they're still listening to the recording of it, or it's right after the recording ends. You just see like a medium on Sandra who just very silently just goes like as she's listening to that, whether you believe she's guilty or innocent, like that just kind of gives you a feeling where it's like she's saying I'm fucked.
Right.
And I think that's it kind of leads me into this thing that I was thinking about, because Justine Triet told Sandra Hüller to play the character like she's innocent.
Mm.
But I think in a strange roundabout way, at least for part of the movie, maybe not all of it, it's almost like the movie is trying to present her as guilty.
Yeah. The first time I watched the film, I actually thought she was guilty.
Yeah, I think like it's a very conflicting thing, which is like the tightrope. I kind of wrote in my initial review that on Letterboxd that Hüller kind of walks a tightrope. But here I noticed that like no, she's playing it like she's innocent, but Triet is playing it like she's guilty. And it's an intentional balance between the two.
But then at the end of the film, there's none of that. They're not playing it like anything. And that's when it gets really confusing.
Yeah. I guess we can get into like whether you think she's innocent or guilty.
I think she's 100% innocent. I believe
everything. I've always felt like she was innocent because I mean the thing about it is just that like my whole thing about it is that like I go back to Daniel's testimony and what Daniel did with Snoop specifically before then. You know, shout out to Snoop, Messi, best animal actor ever. I kind of think about that, and he goes up and he gives his testimony, and I don't know. I guess you could say it depends on whether or not Daniel was telling the truth, but then again, you have to think about like what incentive does Daniel have to lie, right? Like he doesn't really gain anything out of it, and like because if he said he believes Sandra was guilty, then she would go away, and then he would be put in like a foster home or something. So like if anything, he would have incentive to not do that, and so where I guess in a way you could argue that it's like, well, he didn't want that to happen, so he had incentive to do that. But I still like I think the movie just kind of insinuates ultimately like, yeah, she didn't actually do it. But I also think that it doesn't really matter whether or not she did it, because
that's not what the movie is about.
Because like she doesn't literally do it, whether she does it literally or not. I think the movie's more concerned with did other events in their marriage, caused by her or not, lead to Samuel's death, and can she be held responsible for it in one way or another?
Right. Exactly. Very good way of putting it. I think she's innocent though. Like as I said, the argument scene, if you really focus, because I've seen that scene a million times because it's so fucking good. If you really focus on the way he begins the conversation, it's so like, I'm teasing you right now. I'm middling with the affairs. And it felt forced the way he was talking. So naturally, I think he knew what would be taken in and out of context with that clip that would be shown. So yeah, I mean, I think she's innocent, and I think she didn't do anything wrong. But also, like, the film doesn't present it in an obvious way. Like, I could totally be wrong, but also I don't know if Justine Triet has been so good at keeping her mouth shut on what's happened in the movie or not. So
Well, as far as I can tell, she hasn't given a concrete answer.
to be fair, she did say suicide in her Golden Globe speech.
But it's radical and dark. Nobody is gonna see this movie. It's too long, they talk all the time, there's no score. A couple fighting, suicide, a dog vomiting, suicide.
Yeah, I guess so. But if someone really pressed her on it, she like said elaborate on that. She would just it would be like the David Lynch meme, where it's like David Lynch saying Eraserhead is my most spiritual film, and someone says elaborate on that. He says no. I feel like it would just be the David Lynch answer to that question.
Maybe. Yeah, I think so.
Believe it or not, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film.
Why will elaborate on that?
No, I won't.
I do agree that she was like innocent. I think there's certainly a possibility that there was a mutual thing going on. Like she's like not fully like clean.
I
of,
think
like,
she
of
was
anything.
there when he jumped off. I think there's a strong, well, I don't know if I think this for sure, but I think there's a strong possibility that they were in an argument and it happened when she saw it happen, but she didn't do anything.
Maybe. What I was trying to say was like there could be like she might not be fully clean in the sense that maybe she did kind of like fuck up in terms of like, or maybe she did like do something that was wrong in their marriage that ultimately like contributed to it. But like, do I think she killed him? No.
I don't think so either.
Which yeah, and it's kind of a very different thing from other crime dramas and mysteries that we've seen in that specific way. So that's something I really appreciated. We have already mentioned Sandra Hüller, who, of course,
My friend.
Deutschland. You're, oh my god,
friend.
Deutschland's own Sandra Hüller. I do really want to talk about Mila Machado Graner though, because that's like one of the best child performances I've ever seen.
Oh yeah,
hands down.
That kid acted. Is the kid actually blind?
I don't think so.
So that was just contacts because it looked really real.
Yeah, I guess it's either contacts or visual effects.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, there's a scene kind of early on where he's kind of just like crying, and like a lot of times when like you see kids cry in movies, it just comes off really forced in a way. But this one, it feels so natural. And it kind of reminds me, because even with all my problems with Sibyl, like the acting in that movie is very good, and Sandra Hüller is also in that movie. But like it does tell me, like, if anything else, Justine Triet is a really strong director of actors. And of course, there's not just that scene. There's his testimony. There's the scene with Snoop, and then with his what do you call it? Like supervisor, I guess. Right afterward, really strong stuff. He should have been nominated, I think.
Well, of course. I mean,
and I think also the film, not that this was ever going to happen, it should have been nominated for SAG Ensemble.
Yeah,
and arguably should be winning, because amazing cast.
It's all just, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think of that award in an interesting way, where it's like, because it's like performance by an ensemble, I think of it as like actors. Also, obviously, like the acting in it is really strong, but there's also an element of like collaboration and like, I don't know, like connection between the cast members, which is why the winners tend to be that way too. Which is why like I see why like a movie like Poor Things wouldn't get in, because that movie feels like so like Bella. But like Anatomy of a Fall is kind of both, where it's like you have like a main force driving it, but there is collaboration between the actors. And
Mhm.
also like the lack of that collaboration in some scenes makes it much more interesting.
Yeah, when you get to the actual collaboration, it's it's Sandra Hüller and it's Milo Machado Green, or it's Sandra Hüller and everyone's favorite hot lawyer Swan something. I don't know how to say his name. But I love how now that the movie's more widely seen, people are like, that lawyer is very attractive. um, and her and the prosecutor, I don't know the actor's name. It's all really strong work on that front. It's very well casted as well. Of course, Snoop. Can't forget Snoop.
The dog did give a really good performance.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, animal actors are always. I don't know if I should say underappreciated, but like I think like the way you
There's
have
a
to train
yeah,
them to do something. I'm kind of very curious how they actually trained
right.
them
A
to do
dog to do
to,
yeah.
to, to vomit up the pills.
Yeah.
It's
Maybe that was real vomit.
Yeah, I have no clue. I really have no clue. I can't imagine they actually gave him the pills though,
Well, no,
because
but they probably gave him something that was a little sickening.
yeah, yes, something that would be
Or something
safe,
gross.
but also something that would be safe enough to prevent the dog from dying, but like enough to actually make them puke. Yeah, I mean, all the performances are incredible, and of course, Deutschland Sandra Hüller.
I love Sandra Hüller so much. She's awesome.
Yeah,
She is the queen of PGA, BAFTA, and Oscar. I mean, we love it.
it's so interesting because before Anatomy, I had definitely seen her in things. And she's in Tony Erdmann, which
She's amazing in Tony Erdmann.
yeah, and that movie was nominated for an Oscar. She's in the movie that it wasn't nominated, but it got shortlisted. I'm Your Man,
Yeah,
which she's her performance is not like Tony Erdmann or Anatomy of a Fall or even The Zone of Interest in that film, but she's good in it. She's very good in it. It feels like it's a very weird case. Not really a kind of a weird case where like it's an interesting case where um people in the US will see it in Anatomy of a Fall or The Zone of Interest and say like, well, she's really really good. I can't believe I've never heard of her before. But the people in Germany will be like, oh, we've known her for a long time.
right, of course.
Because she's like won a lot of their film awards there. It reminded me of a few years ago when Promising Young Woman came out. A lot of people said like, how have I never heard of Carrie Mulligan before? She's so good. But people in the UK were like, bitch, we've known her for like a decade.
Yeah, what?
Same with Libby Coleman in The Favorite too, actually.
The European women.
Yeah, even more so. I mean, it would probably apply to anywhere else in the world too.
And hopefully the same career trajectory happens to her that did with those two, because I would say that those two women have had really successful and, consistent careers since
Yeah.
those movies. And I feel like Sandra Hüller can have the same.
I mean, she has said that I forget where I read or watched this or whatever. I think she said she would like to work in the States
Yeah.
with some big
Well,
director.
she's not even a member of SAG.
No, I don't think so. Because I mean, you have to be a member of SAG to work in the US, and she's never worked here. So I don't know why she would need one, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think, especially, not just the fact that she's nominated, but she's in 2 movies that are nominated for Best Picture.
Right.
A lot of people are going to take notice of her. She could work with I'm trying to think of like which directors.
Well, she's already worked with a bunch of auteurs, and I feel like
yeah.
to do that already is very impressive.
Yeah. I'm almost surprised she hasn't worked with Hanukkah. Almost.
She will.
Well, assuming he makes another film because he's really, really old.
Yeah, that's true.
I
want her to.
Yeah, I mean, she can. I feel like one of my default answers for actors is David Lynch.
Well, who knows if he's ever making another movie.
Yeah, that too. I mean, I hope he does because like someone. This is a bit of a detour. Someone I really want to see work with David Lynch is Emma Stone. That collaboration would go off.
Yeah, but again, don't get your hopes up.
I'm not.
That
Believe me,
feels
I'm
like
not.
a hype dream.
He has been asleep since Twin Peaks: The Return came out. Well,
Yeah.
no, that's not true. He has his YouTube channel. uh, anyway, yeah, I definitely would like to see Sandra Hüller have a career in the States. You know, get another nomination, maybe even a win, or I don't think she works in TV in Germany, so I don't know if she would work in TV here in the US either.
No, I don't think so. She's
But
so good.
yeah. No, I'm definitely really excited about the fact that
I wanted her to get
she's here.
that second nomination so bad.
Well, I guess we can use this as a bit of a transition to Oscar talk, but yeah, I mean, especially like considering the lineup in supporting actress this year, just I I feel very similar about it that I did to last year's, where it's like there's two deserving nominees.
Oh, I wouldn't nominate any of them in my 5.
I've heard that too, and it's kind of understandable. But like, I don't know. I feel like Davine Joy Randolph. I like
Yeah, I
Danielle
like
Brooks.
her, but like I'm happy with her winning because she's the only one of the nominees who I watched and said, okay, like that could win and that'd be fine. Everyone
Yeah,
else,
I mean,
I
mean,
don't
I
even
don't.
know if I like anyone else to an
I mean,
extent.
but you've also got like Emily Blunt is in there, America Ferrera is in there, and they're both like good at what they do in their respective films. But outside of like, they just have like one scene, and then for the rest of the movie, they're like the straight man. And then there's Jodie Foster, which like just, I mean, she's fine, but the movie is not. And especially the other performance that was nominated for that film.
That movie,
That fucking movie. I mean, considering the crop, I would definitely take her. I said this on
if
the.
she was there, I would pick her. I would vote for her.
I mean, consider. I said this on the discussion. Like, there's a lot of people who like would deserve to be there. Sakura Ando in Monster.
Mm.
Uh, of course, Rachel McAdams. Are you there? God's Me, Margaret. Someone who.
I thought Taraji in The Color Purple gave the best performance, and no one seems to agree. But I thought her performance
She was
the
good.
best part.
She was good. Of course, there's Julianne Moore in May December, which feels like
Right.
something that could have happened. But yeah, I
feel
mean,
like Sandra Hüller kind of came close.
maybe.
Maybe I'm just projecting because I really wanted her to. But it's also tough because she didn't have a single close-up in the entire movie of The Zone of Interest, and I don't know when performances without a close-up don't get manage to get nominated.
Yeah. I mean that's more discussion for the Zone of Interest episode, which I'm very interested in.
Oh, yes.
In terms of the rest of everything, though, the film. Well, actually, we should probably give ratings first before we do that. I almost forgot because we did that in the last one. I'm sticking with the 10 on this one. I really think this movie is pretty outstanding, and I mean we've gone on a long time discussing what the movie kind of means, what it's trying to say about the characters and the French judicial system and how it relates to certain other elements and all the performances. I really don't have a complaint with the movie. So, and it's, one of the best in the oddly stacked lineup. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would give it a 9. It's my second favorite of the nominees, probably. I love it. I've seen it 3 times. It's a classic already. It's so
Mhm.
good.
So what, you're blaming me? I'm the one frustrating
It's
you?
not about who's blaming who or who's frustrating who. The frustration is there, and we're both dealing with it, you see. Me personally, I refuse to rot inside, so I find solutions. And at this point, sex was just a question of personal hygiene.
Yes, but you impose your solutions, which are solutions for you only. You don't give a shit if it hurts me and Daniel.
You leave Daniel out of the game here. This is not about Daniel. I do not impose anything on Daniel. You made us live here among the goats. You complain about the life that you chose. You are not a victim. Not at all. Your generosity conceals something dirtier and meaner. You're incapable of facing your ambitions, and you resent me for it, but I'm not the one who put you where you are. I've nothing to do with it. You're not sacrificing yourself, as you say. You choose to sit on the sidelines because you're afraid. Because your pride makes your head explode before you can even come up with the little germ of an idea. And now you wake up and you're 40 and you need someone to blame. And you're the one to blame.
All right, now let's get into everything else. The movie, of course, has 5 nominations: Best
As
Picture,
it should.
Best
Should have
Director,
more.
Best Actress, Original Screenplay, and Film Editing.
A solid package for an international movie. That's really strong. That's like,
Yeah, I can't think of the last time an international film got all 4 of the big ones.
yeah.
No, it wasn't Roma because Roma missed editing.
I don't know if it ever has. Maybe Life is Beautiful. Did that get editing?
That could have. I'll look it up real quick.
But it's rare. Zone of Interest couldn't do it.
I mean, even if Sandra Hüller got in, I don't think it would have gotten editing. But again, that's a different conversation.
Oh, right. Should have.
It did. Life is Beautiful did get editing.
Okay, so that was the only other one.
Well, that was the last one, at least. I don't know about the others.
I don't think many foreign language films get nominated for performances. It's just rare.
Well, this is why we're glad that this one did.
Yeah, because she should win. I love her in it. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know who I would pick in that category, but like, if she won, it would be one of the best winners of all time.
Oh yeah, I agree. We can talk about other nominations the film could have or should have received. I think really this was like the realistic
Maximum.
I
mean, it should have been submitted by France as the international.
That's the elephant in the room.
However, I'm glad it wasn't, because now Zone of Interest can win an Oscar. And I'm pretty confident that this movie is going to win original screenplay. So they will both have Oscars.
We'll get to wins in just a second. But no, yeah, I think I guess it's a double-edged sword in a way, where like you want the Zone of Interest to win, but you know, France, if they were smart, should have picked Anatomy of a Fall. There was this whole like thing about France's selection committee that Variety put out like the week of the nominations. I forget the specific details of it, but it's just like, well, goddamn. It sounds like you guys really need an overhaul of your rules again. Apparently, after Titan was submitted.
Yeah, it was a shame that they picked that. And did you see Justine Trier's reaction to it?
Yeah, I saw.
And when someone asked her like a month ago, like, "Oh, are you upset that, are you still upset that France didn't select your movie?" And she said, "Well, my movie's going to get nominated for Best Picture, or my movie's in the top 10, so not really." And then the movie that they did pick didn't get nominated even in the one category it plausibly could have. And Justine Trier still got a Best Director nomination and a Best Screenplay nomination.
Yeah,
so she really won. Like, good for her.
It makes me really like think they need to scrap the government of the country has to select the film rule.
Right.
Because, like, I mean, look, the argument for it is that, like, hey, if you don't have that rule, then the nominations every year are going to be like 3 movies from France and 2 movies from Japan, and It's just not going to be fair to other countries that.
But isn't
don't
it always
have
like a
games.
movie from France, a movie from Germany, and a movie from England, and then like one movie from Japan or Korea, and then like probably some other European movie? I
Yeah, I
honestly
think
don't think in the diversity department it would actually change anything.
I don't either. It's usually 3 out of 5 European movies.
At least.
Yeah, this year it was really 4.5 because even though Japan submitted Perfect Days, Vim Vendors is not Japanese. And there's Io Capitano, which is technically an African movie, but Matteo Garrone is not African, and his home country, Italy, was the country that submitted it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of confusing boundaries. Not even mentioning zone of interest being the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean,
I think what they should do is make it like the acting categories, where you cannot nominate Sandra Hüller in Anatomy of a Fall and Sandra Hüller in Zone of Interest both in Best Actress. You have to pick one of the two, or with I guess another example would be you cannot nominate Margot Robbie for Bombshell and Margot Robbie for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood both as Best Supporting Actress. You have to pick one. I think it would make more sense if they just did it like that, where okay, multiple countries can compete, but they can't be double nominated. So you have to pick one for
right. That actually, yeah, that would make a lot more sense.
yeah. And obviously I
Because
think
then
based
this
on
year, The Boy and the Heron and what's the other one from Japan?
Monster, Godzilla -1 could have been in that fold too. In that
Yeah,
case.
it also could have been. And if Evil Does Not Exist had a different release schedule, 4 movies from Japan could have been.
I don't think Evil Does Not Exist would have done it, but
No, but it might next year.
we'll see.
I
We'll
really like
see.
it, so that's just me.
I haven't gotten a chance to see it yet. I mean, I'm very excited for it, but I don't think Hamaguchi's gonna have another drive my car moment.
No, I don't either.
I think based on the nominations this year, we know which French movie they would have picked for sure. Like, I don't think it would have been a question.
No, definitely not.
In terms of like the only other like nomination like I could like feasibly want to really give it because the movie doesn't have like outstanding technicals outside of editing. Like the cinematography is not like standout or sound, and obviously production and costumes are very contemporary. I would have liked to see Milo Machado Graner.
Yeah, I mean that would have been insane. But I'm happy with what we got because it was realistic, but also like surpassed my expectation. I did not predict Justine Triet to get nominated for Best Director.
I did.
I didn't, and I was so sure that she wouldn't get it, and I was really upset with myself. That
I guess I'll recap the story. I was listening to, I think it was Next Best Picture. Somebody cited European Film Awards as a reason for why Trier won, and I was like, oh, it was like a light flicked up on my head, and so I looked at the list of European Film Award director winners, and every European director who was even remotely in the conversation who won that award got nominated, including Ruben Östlund last year.
yeah,
And she won over Jonathan Glazer. So then from that point, especially after its performance at BAFTA, getting into film, my gut just started telling me Justine Trier is going to get in, and she's going to take out someone who maybe is more expected.
she did.
I ended up getting the lineup 5 for 5.
I got
And I did not feel good about not having Alexander Payne. I really did not. I was like, I kind of knew in my head, he's probably getting in, and I'm probably wrong about this gut feeling that I had. But I did not feel. I felt even worse about taking out either Yorgos Lanthimos or Jonathan Glazer, as some people were doing, or God forbid Martin Scorsese. But after Jamie Lee Curtis won, and my gut was telling me leading up to the ceremony, Jamie Lee Curtis is going to win. Jamie Lee Curtis is going to win. Jamie Lee Curtis is going to win. And I stuck with Carrie Condon regardless. Like when that happened, I just told myself, never again am I going to go against my gut. Never doing that again. And so and I just remember that, and I was like, I have to do it. I have to put Trier in, and it paid off.
Yeah,
it paid off. So in terms of wins, I mean, obviously, original screenplay is like the one people really think is happening.
I think so.
It's not a done deal.
It's not a done deal, but it's going to be assuming it wins BAFTA, which I think like duh. I think that there's no other movie in original screenplay this year that will have a precursor win. Therefore, it seems like it's kind of the thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a smart way of doing it, and I have said like I'm going to predict whichever BAFTA does, which
I'm gonna predict BAFTA because usually a movie that wins screenplay at just BAFTA never wins the Oscar, but because this year the WGA isn't really gonna affect the Oscar race, at least from what we can see.
Right.
I think that BAFTA is where we must look.
Yeah. What makes it even more difficult, I mean, the fact that it wasn't nominated, that Critics' Choice, which God knows what the hell they were doing.
Well, I mean, they were just trying to predict the Oscars, and
besides that, obviously.
I mean, do you know who votes on the Critics' Choice Awards?
It's like people like Neglia and Clayton
Grace
Davis.
Randolph.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why I don't take that organization seriously. No matter who wins, no matter who's nominated, I never, ever, ever have looked to that to predict anything. The second those nominations came out, I didn't change a single thing on my.
Neither did I. But regardless,
they're just not a legit precursor. They think they are, but they're so awful. And I remember tweeting like the Critics' Choice really out here trying to predict the Oscars, nominating Saltburn and The Color Purple when I know that Anatomy of a Fall and The Zone of Interest are getting into Best Picture, and they did. Like, they're really pathetic, useless, and stupid. I think that as an organization, they're frankly embarrassing and should be terminated because everyone would be happier that way.
I definitely agree. I think it is kind of weird in retrospect. And obviously, like WGA, I have said like I'm not really gonna think much about it. Like I guess you could say you have to kind of think about what would they do if Anatomy was there and Barbie wasn't an original. But like, I don't really think that you have to go that far. I guess
no, because Barbie's winning that.
In WGA, for all we know, could just go random when everything is said and done. For all we know, they could say, you know what, let's give it to Past Lives.
Well, that seems hopeful. You have quite a hopeful imagination.
I'm not going to predict that. But just because it's going to be so separated from everything else, like, I don't know. I think it's a possibility. But I think Anatomy also makes sense as a way to reward the film that's been appreciated all year. And listen,
and which one got the director nomination?
That actually is true. I just now realized it's the only one. It's the only one that's in the director lineup.
I think that's strong.
Yeah, that does make sense. Because, I think about it. Promising Woman versus Chicago 7. Which movie had the director nomination? Get Out versus Three Billboards. Which movie had the director nomination? I mean, it's not a perfect layout.
And like adapted screenplay last year, like All Quiet and Women Talking, like neither of them got into director, so it's more variable in those kinds of races. Right. But to me, it's usually the film with the best director nomination.
Unless it's winning Best Picture.
So,
which I don't think
none of the movies in that category will win Best Picture. So, I think Anatomy of a Fall will win.
Yeah, that actually does make.
It also makes more sense as an original screenplay winner. If you look at the recent, I'm gonna step back actually, because if Anatomy of a Fall wins, it very clearly falls into a certain camp of recent movies that won, and then if The Holdovers wins, it very easily falls into that camp.
Yeah, they both make a lot of sense. as
Right,
movies
but
ever
I'm
could.
I'm going for the one with the writer director that's in the best director category that has more passion and will win the
Yeah.
BAFTA.
Especially since none of those movies are in serious contention for picture, unless Holdover's like one PGA or something, which would be insane.
I don't like that.
I don't think it's happening. I don't think it's likely.
No, it's not. But
I'm-
yeah,
I'm-
that's my prediction for Anatomy of a Fall. I
Yeah.
don't think Sandra Hüller is going to win the BAFTA. I think that's a projection.
I don't either. I think I don't know. I've seen some people kind of entertain that and compare her to.
But I
Barry.
do think it'll win the international award at BAFTA.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. I think a lot of people just kind of like are going off this idea that like, well, Barry Keoghan won at BAFTA over Kiwi Kwan, but like there's some obvious differences here. I get the comparison, but there's obvious differences. Number one, Banshees was a British movie, whereas Anatomy of a Fall was not, and Everything Ever All at Once was not British. Poor Things, which is the movie that has the supposed Best Actress winner at BAFTA, probable Best Actress winner at BAFTA, is British. And
I don't think
Keoghan also, like, I think had more momentum going into it because he won London Film Critics. Sandra Hüller couldn't even do that.
And Keoghan had BAFTA nominations before that.
Yeah. So I don't think that comparison is all that strong. But yeah, I think original screenplay makes a lot of sense. It's like it's a way to appreciate the film, especially. I mean, not that I think all voters think like this unilaterally, but like especially since Holdovers
totally.
is guaranteed one award, it could win another.
Yeah, I think so too.
Now, one last place this movie is like seriously contending in. Well, seriously, I mean, it's not nominated for anything outside international there because of their rules, but it is nominated for international feature at the Indie Spirit Awards, along with The Zone of Interest. Now, voting ends in a few days, so I really gotta get going on my ballot, on my voting. I'm going to vote for The Zone of Interest, I think, but I think Anatomy of a Fall will win.
I think so too.
Just considering, like, which movie is more seen, which movie has been more of a presence throughout the whole year, and also, I guess people like Anatomy more than Zone of Interest, even on Letterboxd, which I was not totally expecting. Yeah, I think it makes sense that Anatomy would just take it.
I think so too.
All right, well, I think that concludes this discussion on Anatomy of a Fall. So, thank you for joining me, and hope you all enjoyed this conversation about Best Picture nominee, Anatomy of a Fall, which feels really good to say. All the shameless plugs, like, rate, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time when we talk about Barbie.